Hey guys, so in this video I'm just gonna show you how to get started on Upwork, how to get your first job on Upwork, what you need to pay attention to, what is important, how to create your profile, all of the basic stuff, as well as some strategies on how to get going as fast as possible. This is how I made my first $50,000 on Upwork and been freelancing there for the past few years. So I guess I know a thing or two about that. Just a quick overview if you don't know what Upwork is. You probably do if you clicked on this video, but either way, just a quick rundown. Upwork is basically one of the largest freelancing platforms out there, and throughout my years I tried a couple of them, but none of them really kind of stood out in a way, or were not really built well. Upwork was one of the platforms that really took off for me and really worked well, and it has basically, from my experience, the biggest pool of clients and jobs out there. So definitely recommend starting there. So how to get started on Upwork? Well, first you have to pick the category or basically a skill that you have. It's very good to have a very specific set of skill because Upwork has a lot of different categories. And basically, if you can pick a specific skill where you excel or are very good at, that's a very great starting point. You need to create your profile, and there are a couple of things that you need to pay attention to once you start out. The first few things is basically your title. This is one of the first things that pops up in search engines if people search for a particular freelancer, or if you apply for a particular job. This is basically what pops up. I've actually also hired people on Upwork, so I'm going to show you a bit later on how the proposal actually looks like, because it's a bit different than maybe you might have imagined. So the title is very important, and I suggest putting not something generic like graphics designer, because everybody's putting that on their profile and it does not make you stand out. You're just gonna be like all the others, and you need something extra to to get out there. Something maybe like you worked with a client or did a project, or you have certain years of experience, something like that. But putting that in definitely makes you stand out. For example, as I'm only applying to search engine optimization jobs, like I don't need to put there that I'm a SEO expert. I guess many people can already know that if I'm applying for the job, of course I'm in that area. So basically I'm putting something like working with clients that have over 600,000 users per month. And whoever is in marketing, it makes sense to them what I wrote, and it already catches their eye. Another important thing is the description right here. So this is also one of the first things that clients see when you apply to their jobs. So this has to be crafted very well. Actually, I've seen quite a few people using emojis on their description, and it definitely makes your proposal stand out a bit more. Just don't go overboard. Some people just go crazy and put like tons of emojis there, but I think that's a bit too distracting. But putting some of them there, that might be useful. Another thing, once you get started, I really suggest actually placing a video. Probably you won't need that for later on. However, once you get started, once you apply for entry or intermediate level jobs, especially once you don't have any work history on Upwork, video could be a really good sort of introduction to them and build confidence that you are the person who are saying you are, and you can deliver the value that they expect. So these are a couple of things. Then another important thing, we're just gonna skip through work history because that's a bit later on. But another thing that you can do is basically build your portfolio. So there are a couple of ways of doing that. Either you have worked on previous agencies or previous companies or previous projects that basically can gather the data and put it on your portfolio, and that is super important once you're starting out, because basically that's your work history. That's what the clients are going to look for. Another thing, if you're, for example, do not have enough sort of project that you worked on, you can actually create the portfolio yourself. A good example would be graphic designer, right? So if you would like to create logos for other companies, what you can do is basically make 4 different logos just to show what you are able to do. So it might not be, so it will not be for any particular client and you won't get paid for that, but basically you're spending time to put the portfolio on there so you can showcase your work. And that is very important in many cases. Some categories like graphic designers portfolio is way more important than, for example, let's say marketing, where it's more based on your experience and results. But nevertheless, putting up a portfolio is very important. And what I've noticed is that curate your thumbnails, because not a lot of people click around. They actually scroll down to portfolio. I did that myself. And you basically glance what is there. The right information or the most important information in those 4 squares is your key. So don't hide it somewhere down below, or like you can have like many screenshots or many logos in there, but the first has to be that conveys the information that you want to present to your potential clients. This is, for example, as I work in SEO, one of the main key aspects of that is growing organic traffic. So what I'm doing, I'm straight up just showing previous clients that I worked with and the organic growth, the percentage of organic growth that those sites grew. And this is just straight up, people can see, clients, potential clients can see that, okay, this guy, he knows what he's doing. Like he had success with previous projects. That's kind of it. There is actually one more thing. There are certifications. Once you're starting out, these are good to have, but I guess these vary depending on what category sort of you are working with. So for a graphic designer, there may be not many certifications to be had. Other areas may have more certifications. So it really depends on what you're going for. So, I mean, having a couple of them, if you have them already, just put them there. If you don't, but you, for example, see that in your particular area there are certificates to be taken. For example, in marketing, there is Google Ads certification that Google provides, Google Analytics certification that you can actually take for free. So these are just good to have, and you know, it's basically one time done, put them on there and just basically forget it. Especially once you're going forward, these are going to be less important because clients are not paying that much of attention, because there are more important aspects such as your work history, feedback, and so on. Getting your first job. So how do you do that? What is happening? Let's actually jump into find work. And then let's go into search. What you want to do is actually, it's a bit confusing with Upwork. I'm not sure why they're hiding that too much, but basically it doesn't give you a lot of, even if you press advanced search, it doesn't give you a lot of options, to be honest, and the settings that you actually want to choose. So just click on search, press enter, and then you jump onto the actual search bar with all the filters that are going to be very important, especially when starting out. So you click on filters, and this is the key to finding your first job. This is going to make it or break it, basically. The first thing is the job type, right? So the job type, at this point, there are a couple of things here. I suggest going for a fixed price contract once you're starting out, because the thing with hourly, if you have an experience already and for example you will want to charge higher hourly rate after a couple of projects or after a couple of months because you're doing lower price work just to get started and build your work history on Upwork, charging low hourly at the beginning and then changing it to higher hourly is I've received some feedback to some clients that they were very sort of unhappy when they saw that my last job was charged X dollars, and then I'm actually applying to their job with a higher hourly rate. So we try to negotiate that down. But of course, that depends on clients and many things. It's not that important, but fixed price projects would be better, at least to start with, I would say, but also depends on the category. So you have to see what fits you. The more important thing is the experience level. I would go for entry or intermediate level. That also actually depends on your skills. If you feel comfortable on your skills and you actually worked for a couple of years or even more on that particular area, then you can straight up go for intermediate. But for the first job, you can also look up entry-level jobs, because main key aspect here is you're not going for higher budgets, or you're not really interested in the amount you're gonna be paid, because you want to get the first job, excel at it, and get as good feedback or as extensive feedback as you can, so that the next clients can actually look you up and see that, okay, this guy was rated 5 stars and he has like an extensive 1-paragraph feedback from a previous client, which, you know, builds a lot of confidence for them. Client history, that's another thing. At least at the start, I wouldn't suggest to go with clients that have not hired anyone, because you're not certain with what the person you're working with is going to be like, and they might be sort of a bad client, or is just a lot of uncertainty, let's say. So for now, let's jump to clients that actually hired at least one person, so that you can see how what feedback they wrote to previous freelancers and what feedback they already have, because you want to work with clients that have higher rating, as well as they gave high ratings and high feedback to other freelancers, because that basically boosts your chance that you are going to be rated, as long as you provide value to them in the same way. Another thing is definitely check the payment verified thing, because basically what this means is that if they have a credit or debit card on their profile or not. If you don't have it, basically they are not able to pay you. So just an extra measure just to check that, so make sure that, you know, they are serious about their projects. You don't want to apply to jobs that have basically more than 10 proposals. It's just, if you don't have any work history and you have $0 earned on Upwork, you basically are going to go down to the bottom, and there are, you know, other people who are going to be way more competitive. You know, they have work history and they're probably going to be hired. So you want to apply for jobs that have less than 5 proposals. I would even go even further and just select less than 5 proposals, which means basically they might have 0 proposals up to 5 different proposals, but that kind of makes you more visible to the client. And, you know, it's basically, if you start a conversation early, doesn't matter how many proposals you will get, you're more likely to get the job. The budget, that is not important at the moment. It's your first job, and your goal is to get it done so that you can get a review, and then you can find better jobs along the way. Having said that, hours per week. So I would suggest your first job to be a short-term one. Of course, if you find a long-term job and a good client, yes, of course, go with it, roll with it. But if you want to start getting more jobs and more proposals and start applying more, I would suggest getting at least the first project less than 30 hours per week, and project length would be less than a month. That means it's a quick project. This will build your portfolio way quicker than actually working on a long-term job that maybe pay well, but it would be difficult to look for other jobs during that time, or higher paying jobs, or, you know, going for an expert level. Then you select the category. As you can see, there are tons of categories out there. Let's just say, okay, let's go with graphics and design, for example, as a start. And here you go. Let's see, 30 minutes ago, $8,000 paid, United Kingdom, payment verified, less than 5 proposals, intermediate level. So this is definitely something you would want to go for. Estimated budget $20. That would be a great start, I suppose. You know, it's not a lot of money, but as I said, you should not focus on the amount you will get paid for the first job. it's better to just do it quickly, do it very well so that you can get a very good feedback, and then start searching for your next job, which will probably will be with the higher budget and with the better client, and basically kind of build yourself up. But yeah, intermediate, estimated budget 150, $1,000 spent, Italy, 13 minutes ago. So yeah, perfect, you know, and then you can go from there. Basically, you can see that there are a lot of pages, a lot of jobs out there. The key here is that as soon as the job is posted, you want to write the proposal to them. You want to be the first guy basically, or girl, to write them in order to appear on their sort of client page, so they can see you, they can evaluate you, can start talking to you. It's, you know, with these kind of jobs, it might even be, you know, first come, first served basis. So if you see a job proposal, do not hesitate and do not wait. Once you already applied all the filters and you found the jobs you want to apply for, and once you start looking into them, there are a couple of things to, you know, to make sure. First of all, make sure that the client has positive reviews. You don't want to work with clients that had bad reviews, that other freelancers gave bad reviews, because they probably had some bad experiences, and it most likely you will as well. So that's important to keep in mind. And this client is from United Kingdom, 19 jobs posted, 79 hire rate. That is actually another important thing to look at, is the percentage of hire rate. So basically what it is that how many people are hired based on how many jobs that the client has made. So let's say if the client posted 10 jobs and hired one person for each job, that's basically 100 success rate. So it's something to keep in mind when looking at that. Don't be discouraged by a low percentage, but the higher rate basically means that you are more likely to get hired as the person that actually puts out the job proposal, hires the person each and every time. Total amount spent and average hourly rate paid, this is not something that kind of interests you, at least for your first job. This will become way more important later on once you build a little work history, but for now you can kind of skip that. So a couple of things also to keep in mind when you're sending the proposal. First of all, read their job proposal very clearly so that you know what they're asking for. And once you actually write the proposal, make sure you answer any questions that they have or any doubts, or basically show them that you understood what the job is about. Maybe you have some questions on that you would like to ask them. Do that as well in the proposal. While looking through their client's recent history, a lot of people actually, a lot of freelancers who leave feedback, a lot of time they actually say the name of the person that they worked with, which is very good. I can see it here. Always a pleasure working with Dean. So now you know their name, which is great because you can address them. In your proposal, you can say, "Hey, Dean," and you can talk to them as with a person, which just, you know, increases your likelihood that they will probably see that and they would reply to you. This is the strategy that I used a lot, and it worked very, very well. When you write a proposal, try to provide value up front. If they're, for example, working in marketing and they have their site, for example, they have their website listed in a job proposal, what you can do is you can go in there and see what's wrong and basically point them out, couple of things, couple of errors, or certain things that you would work on, or certain things that you see as problems and so on. This basically provides value up front, and clients love that because they see you as a very proactive one, not just sending, you know, templated proposals and hundreds of them, you know, each week or something like that. But you actually read that, you went in, you did your research, and you provided value up front. So this is definitely something to keep in mind. Another thing is that try to stand out from the crowd as well. something like actually putting their name in the proposal from clients' recent history is definitely something that not a lot of people, I've never seen many people doing that. So it's something to keep in mind. And if there is anything else that you can put in a proposal or attach some documents, definitely do that. It's just the more information you can pack in the proposal, the more value you can provide, the more likely the client is actually to respond to you. Just to reiterate a couple of things. So when you select your job, basically what you want to do is stay away from clients that have low or zero history on them, that have a lower rating, that have a very low hire rate. For example, I've seen some people who posted like 100 plus jobs and their hire rate is like 10%. So basically out of 100 jobs they posted, they only hired for 10. So it's not likely that you're gonna get hired, so just skip that as well. Also proposals, if the job has more than 20 or even like 10 proposals at the start, also stay away from them, because it's more likely that you're gonna hire someone with the previous experience. So this is not something to go for. Apply fast. So as soon as you see the proposals, this is something that you have to sort of hustle and grind. So every day, every hour, just keep refreshing, keep checking Upwork and keep sending proposals. This is the only way you can succeed and get your first job. And also, as we just talked, check the feedback that client gives to other freelancers. Is it good? Is it bad? How many stars they rate? That kind of shows the type of person the client is and what kind of feedback you are likely to get if you work with that person. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Now, I think it would be interesting, because I haven't seen many people do that, and as I've been working on Upwork as a freelancer, I've also been on Upwork as a client hiring other freelancers for my own personal projects. So I guess it would be interesting to jump in and see what actually client sees when you apply to their job. As I think, at least when I first saw it, it was very eye-opening and very useful for me, because then I can curate my proposal to exactly what clients look at. So, I think there's some kind of an old saying that it's always good to put yourself in others' shoes, and then you kind of understand what's happening. So in this case, putting myself in clients' shoes, I can better understand how to be a better freelancer. Once a client sort of makes a proposal and sends it out, then freelancers can of course apply. And once some of them apply, this is basically what the client sees, and it's actually less than you might expect. So basically we have all proposals here, and then it's always sorted by best match by default. So of course the client can sort by newest, oldest, highest hourly rate, lowest hourly rate, and so on. But it's always sorted by best match, which basically is Upwork's own algorithm. How it works, it's a bit unclear for me. Haven't found any. Of course, people with high earnings, high job successes will probably tend to come up first, but the actual algorithm is not clear. However, there's this thing called best match, and Upwork usually sort of highlights several applicants that are best match for this case. And it's usually because they matched, because they worked on 18 similar jobs to this one. So basically what that means is that the job that I, as a client, put on Upwork, this particular person worked on 18 similar jobs which have the similar tags or similar titles and so on and so on. However, once you're starting out, that's not you don't have the work history, so of course you probably won't be a best match unless it's an entry-level job. But it's something to keep an eye once you actually get some work done on Upwork, but for now you want to be first, because then you probably will get down at the bottom of the whole list. Another thing to keep in mind is that what client actually sees, because in order to see your profile and your message and your cover letter, he has to click on your profile here. But before that, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. So first of all, of course, there is a name, but most importantly, there is a title. Remember that I talked about when putting a title on your Upwork profile is quite important? This is why. Because it really stands out when you actually apply to various jobs. So making yourself a little bit different or something, adding their extra words or something like that would definitely make you stand out more. Another thing is hourly or fixed rate. But this is not important, as you know, it's your first job and there are a lot of people applying. So I usually, if it's a fixed job, I usually just put the price that a client actually suggested, has the estimated budget, and just leave it with that. With an hourly, of course, you can suggest your own hourly price. Then it's how much the person has earned. This is also not a big concern for the first time. If you're applying for the first time, because it's, of course, it's gonna say 0. Job success will appear later, and then it's a location, but you can't control that, so we just leave it as it is. What actually you can control is the first couple of sentences or first 2 lines of your cover letter, because that actually appears on the front page, and that's what client sees. So for example, if you found their name on client's history on the job proposal, you can actually put that name here, and this would make all the difference, because people they're very good at recognizing their name, either by sound or if it's written. You've been hearing that word and you've been seeing your name for your whole life, so it's a very familiar word to you, your name. So basically putting that in is super important, as well as kind of structuring your cover letter in the way that really catches someone's eye. Sometimes it's putting the links to your portfolio, or sometimes it's talking straight up about the project without any fluff involved. I never thought about it, but once I started hiring, actually the photo that you have on your Upwork profile plays a huge role, because once you start hiring people, the first things you look at is the name, and your eyes actually glance at the photo. So making that professional, making that stand out, making it higher contrast, just to be a bit different, is definitely gonna help. Is definitely gonna help you stand out, and clients will see you better amongst all the proposals, especially if there are more proposals around. Okay, so let's say you've done your profile, you applied to jobs, and the client actually saw you, you stood out, and then he actually clicks on your proposal. And you might be surprised, but actually the profile is structured a bit differently than the public profile. So once you apply, your profile, especially if you have work history, is definitely curated for the client. So your public profile and your proposal profile actually differ a little bit, and that difference mainly is in the work history, but also a couple of other things. So first, of course, you see the name, you see the title, and you see the description. Which makes it very important, because before seeing the cover letter that you wrote, the client actually sees the description. So, and in my own experience, I actually like to read that first before actually going to the cover letter. So making your Upwork profile description with emojis, very clear, very nicely edited, without any typos and so on, is super important here. Of course, there's hour rate, total earned, jobs, hours worked, that's all fine. Then once we get to the cover letter, the first things are actually the questions that the client has asked. So if the client has asked some questions in addition to cover letter, these are very important, as again, these appear first before the actual cover letter. And in my own experience, sometimes if I see that the person didn't take time to answer them, or they didn't understand the question, or it was not what I wanted, or the answer different thing, is many different things can come up. But basically, I might not even go down and read the cover letter if the questions are not answered properly. So definitely put some effort into answering questions in detail so that the client is satisfied with your answer. And of course, then we get to the cover letter. We talked about this, so it's nothing unusual here. Then of course the work history comes along. This is sometimes curated depending if there is a best match or freelancer has worked on the projects that the client has put out a proposal for. So it's something, but for the first job, there's gonna be no work history, so nothing to worry about right now. So actually what the client is gonna see after the cover letter will be your portfolio. So this is why I said in the beginning, it's very important to have some good cases and some very good sort of in-depth and filled portfolio, especially when you have no work history. That is probably the first thing that the client will look at, is your portfolio. So what have you done? So creating that and putting effort into curating your portfolio to as best of your abilities is just a necessity. Going down to skills, employment history, education, other experiences, to be honest, I never look at these things. It's just I gathered all the information I need from the work history, feedback, portfolio, cover letter, your title, description, all of these things. So it's probably, I never usually go down employment history, skill. It's good to have it filled, but it's not something that you need to sort of work your ass on and put a lot of effort. It's just very basic, let's say, very basic skills like tags that you can put on, employment history, education, and so on. So nothing too fancy here. Okay, and basically that wraps the whole thing up. This is the whole process basically from start to finish, especially considering your first job on Upwork. For once you actually already have some work history and once you have some feedback and you've got a bit more experience, then it's a whole another game, another strategy to actually implement. A lot of these are similar, but there are other things that you have to pay attention to and look at. Yeah, but that's actually, a whole another video. I don't want to, drag this too much. I've been talking for way too long, I guess. But I hope this provided value to you. And actually, if you want me to make another video on how to get jobs once you actually have work history, or more advanced strategies on when applying and so on, just comment down below, and if enough people want this, I can definitely make another video explaining Upwork in more detail. As always, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe down below. And oh yeah, before you go, I actually made a video on how to start on YouTube. It's a bit cringy now that I look at, but hey, in case you want to check it out, and the link is in the description. So okay, I guess that's it from me. Over and out.